I never imagined our fate rested in the hands of a black janitor who spoke fluent Japanese. The day I learned this, everything around me cracked, like a fragile vase shattering into a million pieces. I was standing in the back of the corporate office, my heart racing and palms clammy, feeling trapped in a web of chaos. I could hear whispers, hushed tones passing between anxious colleagues, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of dread. I knew something was wrong, but the air felt thick, heavy with unspoken truths. His name was James. He was the quiet one, always mopping unremarkable floors while blending into the background. I had never given him a second thought. Just a humble janitor. But that day, as I glanced at him holding a relic of power, a faded envelope addressed to the highest authority in our firm, written in elegant Japanese characters, I felt my heart skip a beat. Why was he entrusted with such a secret? It all started 2 weeks before. My sister Lily had been working on a project that suddenly spiraled out of control, threatening to expose us all. Hours of late-night strategy sessions crammed into our lives, trying to piece together clues, gripping coffee cups and echoing alarmed voices in the silence of our shared apartment. We were in over our heads, and now the company was facing ruin, a fallout that could send us all crashing down like dolls without strings. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to shield her from the repercussions of her brilliant yet reckless ambition. Yet hopeless visions of our family's future plummeted with every heartbeat. We were fighting against forces we didn't fully understand. Then James spoke. Surprisingly calm, with a voice layered in wisdom beyond hours spent mopping floors. He told us there was a way to turn things around, to rewrite the narrative. It was wrapped around that envelope he grasped. I could hardly breathe, my mind racing. Why him? What did he know? As James started to reveal the elusive threads of a secret alliance hiding between us and a global corporation out of Tokyo, my head spun. Could we really trust him? Questions swirled like leaves in the wind, each shaking truth and conspiracy like the aftermath of a thunderstorm. Just as I began to absorb the weight of his words, the front doors to the office burst open. A team of lawyers marched in, stern-faced, ready to bring the hammer down. I felt my chest tighten. This was it. James locked eyes with me, a flicker of determination sparkling amidst the chaos. But before I could say anything, a chilling realization hit me. What if he was entwined in this mess? What if his fluency in Japanese was just a front, hiding a darker twist to his tale? I turned to Lily, breathless. What if he's our only hope? Or our greatest threat? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air fell into a suffocating silence as the lawyers took their positions. Dressed in sharp suits, each one seemed to radiate authority, their expressions grave as they surveyed the room. I could see my colleagues visibly shrink under the scrutiny, a sense of impending judgment hanging heavy. My heart drummed against my ribcage, escalating with every beat into a chaotic symphony of dread. Lily, beside me, gripped my arm tightly, her nails digging into my skin. We have to trust him, she whispered, her voice tremulous as she darted her gaze between James and the approaching legal team. He has a plan. We can't let fear paralyze us now. The moment felt surreal. There I stood, caught between my sister's unwavering faith and the chilling reality closing in. My mind raced through an array of what ifs. What if James was leading us into a trap? What if he had ties to the very corporation we feared, all while masquerading as our savior? As the lawyers reached the center of the room, I could hear snippets of their dialogue, mentions of the project, implications of betrayal. I felt an unrelenting knot form in my stomach. I thought of my mother, the sacrifices she had made for us, and how determined I was to shield her from this calamity. Let's move, James said suddenly, tightening his grip on the envelope. His gaze was fierce, eyes flickering with a fervor I hadn't noticed before. Trust me. Stick to the plan I laid out. The moment they start speaking, we will make our move. I hesitated, fear suffusing my senses, until the steely resolve in Lily's eyes reminded me of our purpose. With a firm nod, I set aside my doubts and grabbed her hand. We were in this together. Somehow we had to find our way through the storm. Even if the clouds seemed impenetrable, James stepped forward, his posture straightening with confidence as he addressed the lawyers. "I have important information that requires immediate attention," he declared, his voice cutting through the palpable tension like a knife. "Before you proceed with any actions, you need to hear this. It could change everything." The head lawyer, a robust man with a hard-lined face, raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you think we should listen to a janitor?" James stepped closer, his face alight with fierce determination. "Because the language of this business isn't solely about profit margins and contracts. It's about understanding the delicate balance of trust, something you all seem to take for granted." A murmur rippled through the crowd, curiosity sparking amid the tension. I was surprised to feel a flicker of hope. It was as if James had harnessed some hidden power. Perhaps this was our chance. Before I could dig deeper into my thoughts, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, snapping everyone's attention. A young woman, pale, breathless, stumbled into the room, her hair a wild cascade around her shoulders. She was clutching a stack of papers against her chest, eyes wide with panic. "I have something," she gasped, eyes darting between the crowd and James. The lawyers exchanged bewildered glances, but for a moment it felt like time stood still. Her breathless urgency connected with something deep within me, a primal instinct that urged me forward with empathy. "Anyone can speak," the lead lawyer snapped impatiently. "But where's your no?" The woman interrupted, and her voice rang clear, cutting through the bureaucratic noise. "It's about the project. About the threat. It's bigger than any of us realized. You can't just push this aside. People's lives are at stake." I could hardly process her words. Something about her desperation seemed familiar, reminiscent of the countless late nights with Lily where Wed pored over the implications of every decision, always aware of the harrowing stakes. James turned to her, his expression softening. "What do you know?" She hesitated, glancing back at the lawyers, anxiety radiating from her. "I overheard discussions. There's a deal in place, one that puts everything at risk. The companions. The entire project could unravel if the wrong people find out." My heart raced. This unforeseen revelation hung in the air like a pendulum poised to swing, and I could feel the weight of a new reality settling in. The connection was clear. Our struggles were entwined within a much larger game, beyond our comprehension. Suddenly, a loud voice bellowed from the back of the room, a familiar figure, the company CEO, who I had thought was attending a different meeting. "There's nothing to discuss here. I will not tolerate any more disruptions." The weight of my hope began to crumble again as shock cascaded over me. Just when we were about to grasp the threads of resolution, the ground slipped out from under us once more. The lawyer team moved to protect the CEO, as if encasing him in an impenetrable bubble. "We can't let them silence us," Lily shouted, her voice raw with fear and fury, pulling me back into the moment. And as our world began to tip, the realization struck me with a savage force. I was no longer just fighting for our future, but for a cause greater than we could imagine. We were in a battle against unseen forces, against an unseen enemy, and standing at the precipice of an unimaginable journey. As the chaos erupted and voices mingled in a cacophony, I locked eyes with James. Beneath the uncertainty, his eyes shimmered with an unspoken message. We were not alone, and together, we could find the path to forge our own destiny. Yet uncertainty loomed, leaving me on the edge of a harrowing cliff, a revelation of peril luring in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to rise and shatter everything we held dear. The room was electric, a fierce dance of emotions swirling in the air, each heartbeat echoing the conflict bubbling just beneath the surface. I had dared to, for a fleeting moment, feel a semblance of unity among USA, fragile bridge over the chasm of fear. But with the arrival of the young woman and the abrupt appearance of the CEO, that bridge now felt more like a tightrope, one that could snap at any moment. As chaos brewed, I caught fragments of conversations around me, snippets of fear intermingled with desperation. The lawyers were raising their voices, dismissing the woman with patronizing confidence. Their dismissal of her urgency was infuriating. Here she was, a vital piece of this dark puzzle, yet they brushed her aside like she was nothing more than background noise. I could hear Lily's breathing grow shallow next to me. "James, what do we do?" I whispered, urgency underscoring my words. He held his ground, focused and intent. Understanding gleamed in his eyes as he turned to address the throng once more. "We have to protect her," he said resolutely, finally taking the risk to step into the eye of the storm. "If this deal threatens lives, then we need everyone to hear her out." His voice rang clear, and there was an unexpected calm in the storm. The crowd fell quiet, uncertainty darting across their faces as they sensed the gravity of the moment. The young woman took a deep breath and stepped forward again, her resolve slowly crystallizing. My name is Hannah," she stammered, grounding herself. "And there's more. Not only is there a deal, but there's information that's being hidden. If the public knew, it would blow everything wide open. Lives could be lost, and the fallout could reach every corner of this community." Jameis' eyes widened, weaving empathy and urgency like threads into a tapestry of hope. "What information? Please, we need to know." A flicker of vulnerability crossed her face, one that resonated deep within me. I was interning there, receiving training while smooth-talking executives fell in line behind closed doors. I couldn't just stand by anymore. Two documented everything, beaut if they find out before she could finish. A hand shot up from the lawyer's side, crushing the evanescent hope. "Enough of this disruption," the head lawyer barked. "This is not a debate. It's a room of professionals discussing business, not the stage for amateur theatrics." Amateur theatrics. Her desperation, her passion, nothing about it felt theatrical. It was raw, painfully real, like the reality I had been wrestling with for so long. My voice escaped my lips before I could think twice. "What she's saying is important. We can't stand here and let the weight of our fears keep us silent. We need to come together instead of allowing this tepid corporate mindset to drown us." The CEO's laughter was harsh, cutting through the anger that enveloped the room. "You think you can intimidate us with your sentiments? You are nobody. A mere janitor trying to stir the pot with emotional rhetoric." An unexpected warmth surged through me as I glanced at James. His humble job had never been an emblem of weakness, it had always been his strength, a reminder that every voice mattered, even the one meant for sweeping floors. "Don't underestimate us," James replied, his tone steady, yet somehow imbued with an air of vulnerability. "We're in this together regardless of our roles." The whispers, they echo louder when we bind our voices. Every person in here holds the weight of their choices. That boldness allowed Hannah to forge ahead. "You might think you're untouchable in your suits and ties, but there's a reckoning coming. There are people who care. You can't just silence us." Murmurs rippled through our group, and for an ephemeral moment, the doubts that had held us captive began to shake loose their grip. Perhaps there was truth to her words. Perhaps there was strength in numbers. But the hope was fleeting. Reality had a way of crushing even the brightest ember. The head lawyer interjected, his voice low but commanding. "Let's put an end to this charade. You all are clearly meddling in matters you do not understand. This is a corporate issue. You will not win against power." As if responding to his challenge, a flicker caught somewhere in the corner of my eye. James was transitioning again, his face shifting from determination to something akin to fear. I followed his gaze, finally landing on a shadowy figure just outside the door. My heart dropped as the figure moved closer, revealing a familiar face that had haunted my dreams for years. Daniel. I had thought he was long gone, buried in the past alongside the pain he had brought into our lives. But here he was, stepping into a room brimming with animosity, carrying with him the whispers of our shared history, the secrets I had fought so hard to suppress. "Surprised to see me?" he asked, a sardonic smile creeping onto his lips. The chaos around us faded into a muted backdrop as I felt my resolve shake. This was more than just a corporate showdown. This was a battle of the heart. And the cliff I stood upon teetered dangerously as the unspoken conflict washed over me. Just when I thought the battle was for our future, the appearance of Daniel solidified it as a confrontation of the past, the kind that threatened to drown us all. What did this mean for us? What did he want? The questions loomed in the air, buoyed by the tension piercing through my soul, and I could feel hope slipping like sand through my fingers as I faced a truth I could have never prepared for. The tension in the room morphed into a palpable haze as Daniel stepped further inside, his presence a storm that threatened to upend the fragile alliance we had just begun to forge. The whispers of the past clawed at my heart, memories I thought I could bury. Here was a man who had built walls around my deepest fears, A ghost I nearly forgot could resurface to haunt me once more. Daniel, I managed, my voice laced with disbelief. What are you doing here? He looked at me with that all-too-familiar smirk, the kind that could unsettle the calmest mind. Just checking in, he said casually, but underneath that veneer was a churning sea of sarcasm. Thought I'd drop by to see how my favorite mess is unfolding. James stiffened beside me, his body radiating an energy I recognized as protectiveness. I couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude for him, a genuine ally amidst the chaos. This isn't your place, Daniel, he said firmly, refusing to back down. You're not welcome here. Is that right? Daniel laughed, a hollow sound echoing through the air. You all really think you have the strength to stand against this? This is bigger than you, and it certainly isn't about ideals. This is about power. Hannah shifted nervously beside us, her eyes darting between Daniel and the rest of us, as if sensing the storm brewing. What do you know about power if all you can do is throw around your words? She challenged, her voice surprisingly steady. You can't intimidate us into silence anymore. Not over this. For a split second, Daniel appeared taken aback, almost impressed. But then he recovered quickly, a predatory gleam sparking in his eyes. You really think it's about words? You're naive, kid. Let me enlighten you. He strode deeper into the room, and the crowd inched closer, drawn by the force of his presence. Are you aware of what's at stake here? Your naive altruism will only lead to ruin. I felt the room shift. There was an energizing anticipation as people leaned in, riveted by the confrontation unfolding. James stood his ground, and soon more than just the three of us were standing in rebellion. Others began to clench their fists and exchange wary glances, a murmur of courage stirring among them. What makes you think I'm afraid of this? James interjected. You're here to shift blame, to tighten your grip, but you underestimate people like us. We're not just pieces on your board. We matter. Our actions matter. Daniel regarded him with something resembling respect and almost whimsical curiosity. Brave words from a janitor, he replied, a smile smoothing the edges of his condescension. But I wonder how long you'll hold that resolve when faced with the truth of what's really going on here. You don't know what dangers lurk behind that bright-eyed idealism of yours. The way Daniel spoke, as if holding the weight of hidden knowledge over us, felt like a tangible weapon, one meant to carve the bonds we had begun to form. A flicker of fear lodged in my throat, and I swallowed hard against it, willing myself to remain resilient with every tense heartbeat. I thought of the people in the community who looked to us, the lives we needed to protect. Yet alongside that resolve was a personal turmoil, creeping back into the edges of my mind. Daniel knew too much about my pa, the held revelations that could unravel me completely. What do you know, Daniel? I spoke, my voice low but firm, driven by a desperate need to understand why he had returned, what threads he hoped to pull apart. What secrets could possibly be more powerful than the choice to stand united? His gaze sharpened, almost intense, as if he was weighing my vulnerability against his own intentions. You'll find out soon enough. Everyone's past has a funny way of catching up with them. And just like that, the warmth and newfound bravery in the room dimmed beneath the weight of his words. One by one, eyes darted toward me, conclusions forming silently in their minds. My stomach twisted, a tightening knot of anxiety as I realized the implications of Daniel's preconceit was no longer just about the corporate deal. It was now also about the unresolved threads of my past. The tide of camaraderie suddenly felt precarious, wading into murky waters. I was in the eye of a hurricane, the storm of emotions crescendoing, and I fought the urge to cling to the safety of silence. But as I glanced at my newfound allies, hope flickered for an instant, a haunting reminder that even in the depths of despair, there was strength in unity, in shared purpose, in standing against the tide. As the confrontation escalated, a warm hand brushed against mine, pulling me back from an abyss. It was Hannah, her gaze steady and resolute, offering a lifeline in the chaos. Whatever he's threatening, we're not here to give up now, she said, dismantling Daniel's intimidation. We are more than our fears. But what would it take to break free from the grip of Daniel's past? Just as I was about to muster my resolve, a high-pitched ring sliced through the air, and I turned sharply to see Daniel holding up his phone, a glimmer of triumph in his eyes. Would you like to know who's coming next? He teased, the room filled with tension thick enough to strangle hope. The sound reverberating in my ears offered a foreboding promise of impending chaos. Suddenly the air shifted. The door creaked open behind him, and a figure stepped inside, a tall woman in a sharp suit, her presence plunging the room into an even deeper uncertainty. My breath caught in my throat as she turned and locked eyes with Mesamion, I never expected to see again. And with that look, a new wave of revelation crashed over me, the tide shifting dangerously, enveloping me in unexpected memories I had fought hard to keep repressed. The weight of the moment settled heavily on my chest. This was not just a battle for the future, it was a chance to confront the ghosts of my past or risk losing everything. The tension in the room felt like a live wire, vibrating with uncertainty. My heart raced as recognition surged within me, flooding my mind with fragmented memories of a life I had long tried to erase. The woman before me, elegantly composed, was not merely an old acquaintance. She was a reminder of every painful choice I had made, the paths I could have taken but didn't. Amelia, she said coolly, her voice sampling the hollow space between us like a foreign melody. It's been a while. Why are you here? I breathed, refusing to mask the fear in my voice. The memories of our shared history struck hard. Jagged pieces of once bright dreams that had been overshadowed by regret. Do we really want to revisit the past? We both know how uncomfortable it can be, she replied, her lips curling into a slight smirk. The challenge in her tone sent a chill down my spine. James stepped forward, anchor-like beside me. She's here to intimidate us. Just like Daniel. We won't let you manipulate this situation, he declared, his voice a mixture of heat and conviction. That's rich, coming from the help, Daniel retorted with a smirk. But I barely registered his words. My gaze was locked on Amelia, dissecting the layers of resolve I hadn't seen when Shed walked out of my life. She had chosen a different path, one that had led her into the heart of the corporate beast, while I had clung to the ideals we once shared. What do you want, Amelia? I pressed, urgency coating my words. She glanced around at the gathering crowd, and I felt the tide of their anticipation shift. This was no longer just a battle of wills. It was a confrontation steeped in the survival of my past versus my present. I'm here to warn you. You're walking into a minefield, and Daniel knows it. He's got inside information that could topple everything you're trying to build. This isn't just a game for him. These people are pawns in something much bigger. A knot of despair tightened in my stomach as her words sank in. Though she was ostensibly here to assist, I was unsure which side she truly stood on. It was a reminder that trust was a luxury we could not afford. Is that why you've come, Amelia? To ensure I get crushed under the weight of your choices? I shot back, my voice low but fierce, the muscles in my arms tensed like a coiled spring. I was fed up with being a puppet on strings dictated by fear, by memories, by others' ambitions. I'm not your enemy, Amelia, she replied, the coolness of her tone sparking a flicker of something. Was it regret? But what Daniel is doing, it's dangerous. I thought you should know that. Before I could respond, I felt another light touch on my shoulder. This time it was James, squeezing gently, grounding me. We can use whatever information you have, Amelia, if you're really here to help, he prompted gently. She's only here because she's part of this mess that Daniel is creating, Daniel interrupted, his voice slicing the tension like a knife. Amelia knows which strings to pull to get what she wants, and the moment you turn your back, she'll ensure you are thrown into the fire. That's not true, she shot back, anger flaring in her eyes. I'm not here to betray anyone. I'm trying to help. Distress rippled through her, and for a moment, the facade of confidence cracked, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability beneath the suit and sharp features. The room held its breath, teetering on the brink of chaos, and I could sense the uncertainty swirling like a tornado around us. It was a treacherous moment, thick with unspoken words and unresolved tensions. Then help us, I urged, feeling the weight of responsibility pushed down on my shoulders. We need to counter whatever scheme Daniel has set in motion. I can't just wait in there, she replied, her voice pleading yet resolute. There are consequences you don't understand. You're children in a playground, and this is a battlefield. I don't want you to get hurt. A weary feeling washed over me. Anger and regret intertwined in a battle inside my heart. We're not children, Amelia. We're people with lives and families fighting back against the likes of you and Daniel, who think they can just trample over everything we've built. In that moment, amid the charged atmosphere, I glanced around at my allies, at Hannah, who stood glued to my side, her expression unwavering and fierce. A small ember of hope flickered within me. Then, like the twist of a knife, Daniel stepped forward again, cutting through our tenuous thread of unity. You think you have what it takes to dismantle this empire? You're merely pawns waiting for your moment of reckoning. Perhaps I should make it clear that I'm not the only one watching your every move. Before I could comprehend the implication of his words, the air changed with the startling clarity of a storm rolling in. Amelia's phone chimed, breaking her focus. She turned back, her features hardening, the momentary softness melting away with each second. "I have to go," she said suddenly, panic rising in her tone as if she'd seen a ghost. "You don't have the whole picture, but you need to know that Daniel is more connected than you realize." "Wait," I called out, instinctively reaching for her. My heart pulsed fiercely in my chest. But she slipped through the crowd, her heels clacking furiously against the concrete. In her hasty retreat, she cast a look back, her eyes filled with urgency, fear, and something else I couldn't place. Just as her silhouette disappeared through the doorway, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching, heavy and resolute. "We need to move," Daniel's voice sliced through the air like a serrated edge, smirking triumphantly. "Time to see just how much danger you're really in, and how badly I can hurt you." And that heartbeat. I felt the world shift beneath my feet. Not just a battle for the future of a community, but a race against time, spiraling into a descent I wasn't sure we could survive. And as I exchanged frightened glances with James and Hannah, an overwhelming sense of dread coiled inside me. Our fight had morphed into something unfathomable, deeper than I had ever prepared for, echoed by the shadows of the past. I realized the stakes were higher and the consequences steeper than I could have imagined. The coming storm felt inevitable, and soon, we would know just how fiercely the fates could pierce through the veil of association and trust. The atmosphere in the room crackled with chaos and uncertainty, the tension lingering like a specter, whispering of all that was yet to come. I could feel the rush of adrenaline in my veins, igniting my fight-or-flight instincts as Daniel's smirk seemed to expand and swallow the room's ire. "Do you think you're safe, Amelia? Think again," he taunted, his voice slick like oil spilled on the surface of a churning sea. Panic coursed through my mind, drowning out reason as I tried to piece together my next move. The door had barely closed behind Amelia when I felt the suffocating presence of Daniel encroach upon us, a formidable shadow looming over our fragile alliance. James stepped in front of me, valiantly shielding me from Daniel's wicked glare. "You think you can terrify us into submission? We're not as easily cowed as you may think," he asserted, his voice strong but laced with a hint of desperation. "Brave words, James," Daniel replied with a chuckle, "but bravery means little against the game I'm playing. There are larger stakes at play here, much larger than any of you fools can fathom. I don't care what games you're trying to play. We're not going to let you intimidate us," I managed, forcing the defiance in my heart to rise above the fear eating away at my resolve. His laughter echoed through the tense air, sending chills racing down my spine. "Fighting against me is like pitting a feather against a hawk. You'll be fortunate to escape with your skin intact." He paused, leering at each one of us as if we were mere chess pieces, his pawns to sacrifice for the sake of a twisted victory. As the silence fell over the room, thick and oppressive, I felt my breath hitch in my throat. We needed a plan, a glimmer of hope amidst the dark scenarios Daniel painted. Something, anything to counteract the dread he had crafted so skillfully. I turned again to the faces that surrounded me, seeing the fear mirrored in the eyes of my friends. If Amelia was right, if there truly was more to Daniel's machinations, then time was running out. "What do we do now?" Hannah whispered, her voice tremulous yet tinged with an undercurrent of steel. I could see her resolve beginning to sharpen, a quiet strength boiling beneath the surface. "We gather whatever information we can, figure out who else is connected to Daniel," I said, the impulse of leadership surging forward, bolstered by the camaraderie that had carried us through before. "But how?" James interrupted, anxiety threading through his tone. "Amelia left, and we don't know who to trust anymore." "It may not be just her," I replied, a thought unspooling in the depths of my mind. "If Daniel is as entrenched as she suggested, then there must be others who share our plight, others who oppose him. If we can find them." Suddenly, there was a sharp rap against the door, freezing us in our tracks. My heart thudded painfully in my chest, an echo reverberating in the gathering darkness of our dilemma. Daniel raised an eyebrow, his demeanor shifting as he glanced toward the door with calculation. Curious, he murmured, visibly intrigued. I didn't expect visitors. Do stay right where you are, won't you? Before I could process the weight of his warning, the door swung open with a soft creak. A figure stood silhouetted against the light, a short and unassuming man draped in what appeared to be janitor's clothes. He was black, with a mop of hair that seemed too wild for such a grim environment. His presence exuded a quiet confidence that surprised me, contrasting sharply with Daniel's brash threat. Excuse me, the janitor began, his voice surprisingly calm, but I think you've lost something. In his hand, he clutched a small metallic object glinting ominously, the flash drive that had been taken from the office moments before. Daniel's eyes narrowed, contempt shifting into guarded curiosity. What do you know about what's happening here, old man? The man stepped further into the room, not flinching under Daniel's scrutiny. I know enough, and I've heard enough in the shadows that you think you can control. But sometimes desperation breeds the most unlikely allies. What are you talking about? I asked, trying to decipher the enigma before us. I was hired to clean this building. But I've seen the truth lurking in the corners, he replied, his eyes flicking between Daniel and me. They say informants come in all shapes and sizes. What matters is who's brave enough to speak up. Why should we trust you? James interjected, his skepticism rising like smoke in the air. Because I speak fluent Japanese, and I've heard conversations you wouldn't believe, the man said matter-of-factly, tilting his head slightly as if savoring the moment. And if you want to dismantle the empire Daniel has built, you'll need to start here with information no one else has. I felt my heart leap as whispers of possibility wafted through the room. This was the lifeline we so desperately needed. Yet, along with hope came an unsettling twist of trust that hung tenuously over our heads. Daniel, however, wore a mask of disdain that screamed danger. He chuckled, pushing against the weight of urgency that now pulsed around us. You'll regret this encounter, he warned, enunciating each word like a cruel promise. I always collect my debts, and you've all just placed yourselves firmly in the crosshairs that we barely had time to process his threat when, with the swiftness of shadows, he turned and marched toward the door, slamming it behind him, leaving a haunting silence in his wake. In that hushed moment, uncertainty swept over us. What chaos would he unleash? What had we just stirred in the colossal game being played around us? I turned to the janitor, intensity clouding my mind. What do we need to do? I asked, my voice steady but quaking inside. First, we get out of here before he realizes he just lost the upper hand, he replied, his tone practical but underlined with urgency. And after that? I hope you're ready to fight because this story has only just begun. As we gathered ourselves to leave the room, I felt the weight of our intertwined fates, heavy like a stone around my heart. The battle against Daniel was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a plunge into uncharted territory rife with new alliances, and the specter of betrayal lingering around every corner. Each of us moved toward the door, hearts racing, ready to embrace whatever came next. But as I took a step, a thought struck me like lightning, a horrifying realization creeping in. The more we learned, the more entangled we would become. Was there truly any way out? And as I glanced back at the vacant room, shadows flickering against the walls, I knew we were just at the edge of something much darker than we could have ever imagined. There were whispers in the hall, murmuring secrets and tangled histories, and we would need to confront them all if we were to emerge intact. As we stepped across the threshold into the unknown, anticipation swirled within and around us, as terrifying as it was exhilarating. The dimly lit corridor welcomed us with a chill that slithered down my spine as we squeezed past each other toward the nearest exit. I could hear the faint echo of our footsteps against the cold tile floor, a fragile reminder of our hurried escape from the room where everything had changed. The weight of Daniel's words lingered like smoke in the air. The janitor followed close behind, his steady presence grounding me as the anxiety swirling in my chest threatened to consume me whole. Where do we go from here? I whispered, glancing over my shoulder at him, seeking guidance amidst the chaos. He paused for a moment, looking both ways down the corridor as if weighing his options. There's a break room on the far side of this floor. We can hide the Reno one ever thinks to look for secrets in the places they carelessly dismiss. James nodded, his voice low but urgent. And then what? We can't just sit around waiting for Daniel to find us. We need a plan. The janitor turned to face us, his eyes glinting with a determination I had not expected. You have the drive, don't you? Once this is all over, hell come looking for it. You'll need to protect whatever is on it. It holds answers to everything, the connections that bind people to Daniel's web. We have to find out what's on it first, I said, trying to keep the panic at bay. But we can't do that here. Then we'll find a safe place, he replied, his voice steady. But first, let's get to the break room unnoticed. We hurried toward the break room, the air thick with tension as I replayed Daniel's smirk in my mind. Each step felt heavier than the last, and my thoughts churned like a storm. Trust, the word echoed within me, reverberating against my concerns about our new companion. Why had he approached us? Was his presence a beacon of hope, or a trap laid out by Daniel to ensnare us further? As we pushed through the door to the break room, I felt the weight of the world pressing on my shoulders. I could barely take a breath as the door clicked shut behind us, sealing us away from the turmoil outside. The janitor wasted no time. He moved swiftly to the old refrigerator and crouched beside it, seemingly searching for something. Here, he said, pulling a battered box from the dusty shelf above. We can hide the flash drive here for now. I'd trust you with it more than anyone else, but it's too dangerous to keep it in open view. I took the small, cold metal object from him, feeling the heaviness of its secrets in my palm. I'll keep it safe, I promised, tucking it deep inside my pocket, my heart racing. Hannah leaned against the counter, her face paled with uncertainty. This is all moving too fast. What if we're just walking into deeper trouble? We barely know anything about him. I know it's a leap of faith, I replied, my voice shaking slightly. But if we want to fight back, we need allies like him. I can feel it. Or more enemies, James interjected, his brows knitted with concern. We're basing this on a hunch. It was hard to deny the truth in his words. I, too, felt a prickling apprehension, the whispers of doubt nudging at the edges of my certainty. Just then, the janitor stood up, his expression grave. Daniel won't simply let you walk away. He's already anticipated the moves you will make. Trust that he has eyes everywhere. But every game has its nuances. It's those nuances that can turn the tides. What do you mean? I asked, striving to keep the tremor in my voice steady. Look, you all have something Daniel covets. It's not just power he seeks. It's control over the hearts of people embedded in his network. There was a fire in his eyes. We need to pinpoint his weaknesses, not just his connections, to unravel his plans. What are those weaknesses? Hannah pressed, curiosity mingling with anxiety. He shook his head. That I can only explain in whispers, surrounded by trust, and that trust must be built with actions. But I can say this. There are people even within his circle who are disillusioned, who want to bring him down. A resistance. I echoed, my heart leaping at this flicker of hope. How do we find them? How do we know who to trust? The world you're asking to navigate is filled with whispers and shadows, he replied, his tone shifting to one of grim reality. You'll have to tread carefully, or you'll burn bridges before they're built. Before I could respond, a sound reverberated from the break room door, a heavy thud, followed by muffled voices. Fear shot through me. Fear that our brief moment of safety was slipping through my fingers. Did you hear that? James whispered, heart racing. They're coming. I felt a rush of adrenaline as the janitor moved closer, positioning himself by the door, even as my heart fought against the urge to burst from my chest. Remember, it's not just about what you do. It's about understanding your enemy, he advised, casting one last look at me before shifting his gaze toward the door. Stay quiet. Await your moment. You may find more than you bargained for behind that entry. Tension enveloped us, thick like smoke. The door rattled again, and I could hear the unmistakable rhythm of shoes against the floor, a familiar cadence that sent dread curling in my stomach. And then, everything around us fell unnervingly quiet. I could only imagine the enemies that awaited us beyond this threshold, the stakes rising higher. Just as we thought we had gained a foothold, we were again teetering on the edge, our hearts rapidly beating out a warning song. Amelia, I breathed, not meaning for her name to slip past my lips, but there it was, the haunting reminder that she was out there, alone and unguarded, threading her own tale through the dark web we were trying to dismantle. As the door creaked open, I felt the energy shift in the room, a tide pulling, shaking the foundation of my resolve. Whatever happens next, I whispered, we stand together. The eyes of the janitor met mine, filled with a gravitas that was both unsettling and strangely reassuring. But before I could draw a deeper breath, The door swung open completely and in walked the last person I ever expected to see, their face painted with a blend of fear and determination. Amy. Amelia's voice rang out, trembling on the edge of disbelief. I need to talk. It's about Daniel and what he knows. In that instant, the delicate thread connecting our fates snapped taut, suspending us in a moment of painful clarity, teetering on the precipice of revelation and despair. The moment Amelia stepped through the threshold, the air in the break room shifted, pulsating with unspoken tension. Her wide eyes darted between the four of us, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within their depths. I didn't know where else to turn, she said breathlessly, her shoulders trembling as the gravity of her words settled in. Amelia, how did you? I began, but she cut me off, urgency lacing her voice. Didn't know time for explanations. Daniel's closer than you think's aware of everything. I was held back by the very people who I thought would protect me. She swallowed hard, her resolve seeming to falter for just a moment. He knows about the flash drive. A chill crawled down my spine, dread curling at its edges. The weight of the metal object in my pocket felt heavier than ever. You're sure? How do you know? We barely, because he confronted me. Amy, she interrupted, her voice rising in fervor. He laid it all out, threats, offers, manipulations. He's been watching us. Every move we made, every plan we attempted. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her chin lifted defiantly. I can't let him control our fate. We can't let him. James shifted beside me, his expression laced with incredulity. What did he say? What does he want? This isn't some game for him. Daniel wants complete control, not just over the files but over use, over our lives. He believes we have something that can bring down his empire. Her voice quivered with the conviction of someone who had faced darkness head-on. He wants to twist it to his advantage. Then we can't give it to him, I declared, a surge of adrenaline mixing with a newfound hope. We need to figure out what he knows and how to counter it. But if he's got a hold on you, it's like we're already losing. Amy, she said softly, stepping forward, her gaze imploring. I need your trust now more than ever. I've uncovered information that could turn the tide in our favor. There are allies waiting in the wings, people who are just as disillusioned as we are. But I need to get you to them before Daniel can strike. The room hung heavy with unspoken fears and dreams precariously balanced. I glanced at the others, their faces etched with uncertainty, yet beneath it all, a reluctance to turn away from the fight began to bubble to the surface. How do you know who to trust? Hannah interjected, her voice tinged with skepticism. You said it yourself, Daniel can manipulate anyone. What makes them any different? Amelia shot Hannah an irritated look, but it was the janitor who stepped in, his voice calming yet firm. Trust is complicated. A delicate web of shared fear and hope. You have to gauge not just the actions but the intentions behind them. He faced Amelia, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. You've gambled your life in seeking to share this information. Why take that risk? Because, she said, her resolve rekindling, I'm tired of being afraid. We're stronger together. I've seen the toll Daniel's schemes have taken, and the lives he's shattered in the process. I won't be another casualty. The janitor nodded, and I felt a flicker of unity in that moment, a shared understanding of the stakes. Then we have to plan better. But we can't do it here. We're vulnerable. Daniel can breach this place at any time. As the words hung in the air, the tension ratcheted up, pricking at the edges of my composure. Just then the overhead lights flickered, casting strange shadows in the cramped space. What if he has someone here? James whispered, his voice barely audible. Amelia's eyes widened, a fresh wave of alarm washing over her. We need to go. Now, just as we began to formulate a hasty plan, another loud crash echoed in the corridor, followed by the unmistakable sound of boots marching, class-era chaotic clamor only Daniel's people could produce. Suddenly, the stakes felt even higher, and panic flooded my veins. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. Daniel's network was vast, and we were walking targets. Amy, you said you'd keep that drive safe, the janitor urged, his eyes scanning the room, seeking the best escape route. You need to do it now before it's too late. My hand instinctively reached into my pocket, clutching the flash drive tightly. I will protect it with everything I have. Each heartbeat thudded, a reminder of our vulnerability. Then we split up, Amelia suggested, her voice gaining momentum. We can't all be caught together. It's our best chance. But how do we? I started, but the janitor raised his hand, silencing me. We have no time. You have to create a diversion. Trust that I will guide whoever is with me to safety. You'll have an opening, use it, he said. A fierce glimmer in his eyes. My heart raced at the thought of separating from each other now felt like giving in, like letting Daniel win. But deep down, I knew it was our only option. Before I could voice my doubts, Amelia leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. After we separate, head for the old maintenance room. There are supplies and another way out. We can meet up there. Don't let fear rule you. Don't become just another piece in Daniel's game. And with that understanding, it felt like time stretched infinitely, each moment bursting with potential to either save us or condemn us. Together then, until the very end, I whispered, just as we were about to make our move. The door swung open with a deafening crash. A space where we had found brief refuge turned into the apex of our impending chaos. And as we readied ourselves for what lay ahead, a strangled voice sliced through the air. Amelia, don't you dare go with them. Daniel's angry roar reverberated around the room. A cruel reminder of our inevitable collision with the enemy. My blood ran cold. As he stepped into view, flanked by two of his most horrifying enforcers, I realized this battle was just beginning, and our lives were about to unravel like a tightly woven tapestry, thread by thread unraveling toward an uncertain fate that could snatch away everything we held dear. The air hung thick with impending doom as Daniel's shadow filled the doorway, his presence suffocating the spark of hope we had tried to ignite. I felt the color drain from Amelia's face, her breath hitching as she confronted the reality beyond mere strategy and deception. Daniel, she said, her voice steadier than I felt as she stepped forward, her body instinctively matching his fury with courage. You can't control me anymore, he laughed, a chilling sound that echoed off the walls, sending shivers down my spine. Oh, Amelia, you really think this is just about you? You've always been the weak link, too emotional to see the bigger picture. If I must break you to protect my interests, I won't hesitate. His words hung like a lethal cloud, igniting an unending battle between fear and defiance within me. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to lash out, knowing full well that would lead to our demise. Let her go, Daniel, I managed to say, my voice trembling but resolute. Whatever game you're playing, it ends here. Cute. You think you can take her from me? I've spent years building my empire. You're just pawns, expendable and naive. He turned to his enforcers, a twisted smile creeping on his face. Dispose of them. Time slowed as chaos erupted around us. James lunged toward Daniel, shouting a warning, but the two men beside him were like wolves unleashed. I grabbed Amelia's arm, pulling her back, a surge of adrenaline forcing me to act rather than think. Run! I screamed, shoving her toward the back exit. In that split second, the janitor stepped into the fray. Get to safety! He shouted as he barricaded himself between us and Daniel's men, his face hardening with fierce determination. I won't let them touch you. I watched in horror as he dropped to the ground, a move calculated with precision. With unexpected agility, he swayed like a leaf before striking, disarming one of the larger enforcers with a swift kick to the knee. The man crumpled, howling in pain, but it paid the price of distraction, a split second that might cost us everything. Now, the janitor yelled, extending a hand toward us, signaling for urgency. I grasped Amelia's wrist tightly, dragging her behind me as we darted for the maintenance room. Bellowing from Daniel resonated with expressions of fury and frustration, but the crazy rhythm of my heart drowned it all out, pulsating with the fear of servitude and the desperation of survival. A flicker of hope surged inside me as we reached the heavy door. In, I urged, barely managing to shove Amelia through before looking back. The janitor struggled, forcing his way against the enforcers, who were now regrouping. I shut the door behind me, the echoes of muted chaos muffled by hardened steel, but that thin barrier felt flimsy against the powerful reality we had just escaped. Amelia sank to the ground, gasping for air. I knelt beside her, grasping her shoulders, wanting desperately to soothe her trembling form but recognizing our dire predicament. Is he okay? The janitor? She murmured, panic flickering in her voice. I don't know. But we have to focus on us right now, I whispered. We can't dwell on what we cannot change. We need to concoct a plan. As the adrenaline began to wear off, clarity flooded my thoughts. Behind every fear loomed the memory of that flash drive. A small but vital possession that could either be our salvation or our doom. What if we used it against him? I proposed, my mind racing with possibilities. If we can access the files on it, perhaps we can leak the information before he can act. Amelia shook her head slightly, her brows knitted together in a mix of concern and urgency. If we use it now, we could expose our allies. Daniel might have eyes everywhere, and he'd stop at nothing to eliminate user worse. Before I could respond, a loud crash sounded from the front of the maintenance room, jolting us both. They're coming! I shouted, heart hammering in my chest. We need to get out now. Amelia's eyes widened, fear igniting her features. The window! We can climb through. But as I turned to the large window, desperation clawed at my insides. We can't just leave, what about? Suddenly a voice lurched from the shadows. It was the janitor's voice, battling amidst the ruckus, determined and sharp. Fight! You have to fight back. A fresh wave of alarm surged through me, but his courage sparked something inside. The thought of letting him down, of throwing away the sacrifice he was making for our freedom, steeled my resolve. Together! I shouted, and Amelia nodded furiously, the weight of our choices crashing over us as we unlocked the window, the fear of what lay outside now replaced by unyielding determination. With the corners of our plan forming in the depths of despair, we crawled through, each movement a prayer for survival. Yet, as we landed on the other side, heart racing with the thrill of risking everything for a chance, the night sky opened in dramatic fashion, revealing a swollen moon that illuminated a figure standing at the edge of the trees. Amelia, he called, his voice a haunting familiar echo that froze my blood and severed the fragile thread of hope. It was Daniel, looming in the darkness, his presence a reminder that nowhere felt safe. Where do you think you're going? He taunted, a sinister glint in his eyes reflecting the very moonlight that now held us captives. In that moment of utter realization, I felt the weight of our decisions press down harder than ever. The conflict was far from over, but we had become unwilling players on a board much larger than ourselves, and only the next unpredictable move would unveil our true fate. The air crackled with tension, stifled beneath the weight of Daniel's menace. My heart raced, a frantic drum echoing in the abyss of dread as the moon glinted off his features, transforming his smile into a predator's sneer. I instinctively moved to shield Amelia, gripping her arm tightly, desperate to convey strength in the face of the storm. Don't you dare think this is over, he sneered, stepping forward as if intent on looming larger than life. The coldness in his gaze sent shivers rippling through me, igniting a flame of anger that surged within, ready to fight back. You've stirred up a nest of trouble, and trouble has a way of biting back hard. Not if we're ready for it, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I felt a fierce resolve igniting, the courage stemming from knowing the stakes were higher than my fear of Daniel. We have friends, people who will stand alongside us. A flicker of amusement crossed his face, but it was laced with disdain. Friends? He laughed bitterly, a sound that felt like shards of ice. You'll find quickly that ones like you're deeply alone. One by one they'll turn their backs. They always do. Not this time, Amelia countered, her voice firm. Confidence surged within her as she squeezed my hand, our shared strength combining into something we could wield against him. This time we've uncovered the truth. And with that truth, we'll expose you for the fraud you are. The ominous glint in Daniel's eye wavered for a moment, replaced by a flash of anger that boiled just under the surface. You think you can challenge me? Do you not realize how high the stakes are? His voice dripped with contempt. Your lives, your families, they mean nothing in the grand scheme. You're mere obstacles on my path to power. Power built on lies and manipulation is built on quicksand, I shot back, the adrenaline giving me strength I didn't know I possessed. But truth? That's a foundation worth standing on. The world around us felt suspended, and to me a fragile moment before everything erupted. A fleeting glimpse of clarity amid chaos. Around us, the trees swayed as if whispering secrets, but I could only focus on the storm in Daniel's eyes. You have no idea what you're dealing with, he spat, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a low, threatening growl. I will take everything from you when the dust settles, you will beg for mercy. A sudden determination surged through me, shaking off fear like water off a duck's back. You won't take anything from us. We're done being pawns. This time we're calling the shots. I turned to Amelia, her unwavering support empowering me, bolstering my resolve. Are you ready? Ready as I'll ever be, she responded, her eyes fierce with defiance. "Then let's do this together," I said, squeezing her hand tighter, feeling the unity of our purpose tether us against the suffocating darkness his twisted games had created. But Daniel was not an enemy who would yield that easily. He lunged forward, and in that moment instinct took over. Together we dodged aside, making a dash for the trees. The forest wouldn't just be our sanctuary. It would be our battleground. The escape felt like a gambit, and yet, within the heart of it, there was a profound strength rising. We sprinted deeper into the woods, breathless and alive, adrenaline pulsating as the sounds of pursuit followed us. I could hear Daniel's men cursing as they scrambled behind us, their feet crunching against branches that seemed to conspire with our movement, giving us the briefest moment of advantage. "There!" Amelia shouted, spotting a small clearing ahead. We burst through the trees, emerging into the moonlight. It illuminated the ground ahead of us, a stark contrast to the shadows chasing us. "Where do we go now?" James's voice, edged with uncertainty, echoed behind us as we halted. "Trust in each other," I urged, scanning the clearing for any means of escape, a hidden path or something that resembled salvation. And just as I thought we might be trapped, I noticed a familiar figure, a compass of hope appearing from behind a brush. It was our ally, the janitor, who emerged from the tangle of leaves, mirroring our urgency but with a glint of certainty. "Quick! This way!" he commanded, his voice a steady anchor amid the chaos as we dashed toward him. The sound of footsteps crackled at our backs, growing ever closer. I could feel the surge of panic return, but it was eclipsed by the burning desire to survive, to forge ahead. The janitor was focused, unwavering. "We have a plan, but we must stay quiet." He led us down a narrow trail concealed by thick foliage, the shadows swallowing us whole once again. "Keep your heads down," he whispered. "He won't expect you to make it this far." The tension crackled against the silence of the forest. As we traveled down the winding path, my thoughts raced. Would Daniel truly go this far to retain his control? What would become of the truth that we now possessed? After what felt like an eternity of running, a sobering thought washed over me. If we made it out alive, we'd have to be prepared to fight back. "What's next?" I whispered to the janitor when we finally paused to catch our breath. "Meet the allies, those who want Daniel out just as much as you do," he said, glancing appreciatively at Amelia. "You'll have to confront the deeper layers of this nightmare. But with truth on your side, you have a fighting chance." As we exchanged glances, the fire of resolve ignited once more within us. This would be our stand, our moment to reclaim not just our lives but the lives of everyone threatened by Daniel's tyranny. But as we prepared to regroup and strategize, there arrived a harsh reminder that our battle had yet to reach its climax. In the dim moonlight emerging through the canopy above, we felt a soft drizzle begin to fall, intermingling with the weight of uncertainty. That storm was coming, but so was the dawn. We faced darkness. Now we must embody the light. I turned to my friends, hoping to rally their spirits. "This fight is for all of us." Together we held on to that sliver of hope as we ventured deeper into the shadows, knowing the moment of truth would arrive soon. We would either stand and face our fears or falter under the weight of Daniel's looming threat. The battle had merely begun, and each step we took was a promise to unfurl our fates against the darkness. Whatever awaited us, we would rise together, unwavering in our determination, crafting a legacy of courage deeply entwined with every heartbeat. And as we forged ahead into the night, I couldn't shake the words that floated softly through my spirit. Sometimes the fiercest flames are lit in the shadows. We were ready, and we would not shy away from the inevitable reckoning.